was Susanna Rico, the World Food Programme's Emergency Regional Coordinator for the Sahel. After discussions with the Vice President, Madam Rico spoke to waiting journalists.
Prominently to discuss the response to the current emergency, with which we are pleased. And the World Food Programme has made a commitment to assist 206,000 people, and we are getting approximately to reach all of them by now. So we are fairly assured that we will not have a major crisis in the Gambia. We also discussed the future of programs. The World Food Programme in the Gambia has a program for school feeding, and it's doing now a pilot for school gardens so that the children learn some basic agricultural techniques and contribute to the school feeding program at the same time.
The UNDP's regional director based in Dakar, Senegal. The discussions centered on the current food crisis and how to prevent such a crisis in the future.
Gambia has been growing, as you all know, by 6-7% over the last 5 years between 2005 2011, but this crisis has really set the growth back. It's going to be about 3% in 2011 and maybe negative in 2012. I think that we cannot sit down and expect that to happen again, and we must be able to do something about it. Today we know that there's enough technology to improve irrigation. You have about 200,000 hectares of productive land and only about 5,000 that is irrigated today. And the question is, with all the, I think with the Gambia has seen, I think, a lot of generous support from all the donors, the UN family, the Bretton Woods Institution, the World Bank, which I represent included, the ADB, the African Development Bank as well. So there is, I think, unanimous support, the Islamic Development Bank, towards agriculture, and I think this is a unique opportunity now to do something transformative.
Leila Mukadem, the regional resident representative of the African Development Bank and the African Development Fund, also based in Dakar, met Dr. Jai Sedi to reaffirm her institution's support for the page and beyond. Madam Mukadem said the African Development Bank has pledged over $100 million towards the long-term support to the government of the Gambia to enable it fill the funding gaps for the page. The African Development Bank has pledged over $100 million towards the long-term support for the government of the Gambia to enable it fill the funding gaps for the page. Mondo Jallo, GRTS.
Travel agencies now have the all clear to sell air tickets to government. A media release from the Office of the President states that GIA is no longer the sole provider of air tickets to government officials. The sale of air tickets, the release adds, is now open to all agencies and people are free to go for the best deal they can get. The Directorate of Treasury is equally informed of this new development, the dispatch ends. A number of young peer health educators have completed a grueling race that covered more than 400 kilometers. The group, led by Andrea Moritz, a Canadian who is currently in the Gambia to raise awareness of some health issues among women and girls, commenced in Koina and ended in Banjul. Amadou Eschalo joined the racers on their final leg of the race, and he now reports.
That was the last piece of action from the Love for Gambia road race participants. 14 days after the first laps were taken on the tracks of the far-flung village of Koina in the extreme corners of the Gambia. Andrea Morris, a Canadian, followed in the footsteps of her compatriot and pioneer of the charity run, Erin Poria, who last year ran an incredible race from Koina to Banjul in support of efforts at raising peer health education in the Gambia. After completing the toughest part of the race, Andrea and her team began the last lap of the Run for Gambia 2012 at the Westfield Runabout en route to Banjul. The run began with the routine rituals, a moment to indulge in the fun, and the emotions were in clear view. In this case, achieving the objective was in clear sight. Excited and at times showing clear no nerves at the daunting task facing the team, the group set off for the final act. Upon crossing the Denton Bridge, it dawned on the team that little stand between them and a triumphant entry into the capital city, Banjul. The group kept apace, stuck together, and marches in on the city gates in a show of solidarity. A year earlier, Erin Poria, the heroine of the previous run, told me how emotional she felt completing the race and entering the gates of the city. 12 months on, those raw feelings were in display right in the faces of another Canadian, Andrea Morris. Banjul's historic Arch-22 monument provides the team a memorable symbol marking the very point of entry into the old city. What followed next is an emotional hug, a moment to relive the hard work of the last 14 days. After a deserved dive into the ocean, Andrea regained her energy, and this is how she describes her journey from Koina to Banjul in 14 days, covering a staggering 424 kilometers.
We saw the children so eager to learn and so clever and picking things up very quickly and keen to share what they learned about staying healthy with others in their communities too. So it was just, it was what kept me going even when it was difficult to run.
What did you love most about the whole event?
Two things I really loved. First of all, the children. So excited when they saw us coming by, jumping up and down, crying, "Toobab," and just welcoming me warmly.
The joy at taking the race to the end was unbridled, and the team shared their feelings with GRTS.
You can follow that story and other GRTS programs live on our website at www.grts.gm. There you can also monitor GRTS Radio Live. That takes us to our first break. We'll be right back.
Words of inspiration.
I really want to go back home and try to follow my dad's footsteps.
Events that shape our perspectives.
I always say this, Gambia will never stop having peace.
Translating dreams into reality.
The rights and opportunities of all women and girls deserve our attention and our support.
On Weekend Spectrum, we try to follow the spectrum of stories focusing on human interest angle and make you wonder what's next.
Well, 8 books, that's a huge collection.
Every weekend at this time on GRTS.
Welcome back. Hundreds of demonstrators, majority of them from civil society groups, have demonstrated in front of the UN peacekeeping headquarters in Congo's Bukavu region. The demonstrators are angered by what they say is a lack of serious action by UN troops to deal with the M23 rebels who have taken positions at the gates of the town of Goma. Meanwhile, top M23 political figures say their target is the seat of government in Kinshasa. We have details in this report.
At Bukavu in eastern RD Congo, people demonstrate calling for protection by the United Nations. Protesters went to MONUSCO HQ demanding action against the M23 rebels who are threatening Goma, just 100 kilometers away.
We, the civil society organizations, can no longer understand or accept that with 17,000 blue helmets, the UN cannot support the government forces against the aggression of Rwanda.
Government forces have so far proved incapable of repelling the insurgents. It's got local residents worried.
If they are so useless, they should admit their incompetence, pack their bags and go home.
This week, UN forces with helicopters started firing on the rebels in support of reinforcements brought in by the Kinshasa government. Up to now, they've been protecting civilians only. M23 comprises soldiers previously in the government army but who deserted 3 months ago. In the past few days, they withdrew into the hills after pulling out of Rutshuru, which they'd captured earlier. The M23 men are displaying a new political dimension to their fight. They say their target is the Kinshasa government.
The problems facing this country are the lack of democracy and the lack of regard for human rights. You know what happens to journalists here. Some have been killed and others put in prison.
Analysts say UN commanders now seem determined to back the government and stop the rebels advancing any further.
Coming out of Nigeria, speak of a horrific accident involving a huge fuel tanker in the southern part of the country. Official reports put the death toll at 100 people. The Togolese Prime Minister has announced his decision to step down after 4 years in power. The Prime Minister's resignation comes amidst mounting street protests by opposition groups. and the newly elected